Hey, what's going on, everyone? So recently, I went off a little on a game from a very important franchise to me, a game that was celebrating its 20th anniversary since its release. And I didn't mean to go off on it, but the reason why I did was because of the question that was asked in relation to this game, and in some respects it forced me to mention this game's negatives more than its positives in order to highlight why I consider the game to be so much better. I felt a little guilty after this because I love this game, I really do. So I thought I'd build a video around the idea of why I reacted the way I did. So in this video, I'll be talking about the follow-ups to legendary games. So those follow-ups that arguably didn't have a chance in hell in making you feel the same way as you did about the previous game, and how those follow-ups would have always struggled to surpass the greatness that came before. Now, this in no way, shape or form means that these follow-ups were bad games. Far from it, and individuals will consider some of these follow-ups to be better than those original games, but I'm just talking about the original impact for myself. So here are 6 examples of games I've chosen and why their follow-ups were potentially always going to struggle to surpass them.
Here we go!
So, everyone knows I love Super Mario Sunshine on the GameCube, and although I'll be happy to discuss some of its negatives, those negatives never stop me from enjoying what is still arguably the best 3D platformer of that generation. But let's be honest here. What chance did Mario Sunshine have of grabbing our imaginations and wowing us in the same way as the industry changes Super Mario 64?
It's me, Mario!
Which still, to this day, remains a template for all 3D platformers. The simple answer is that, it never. The N64 just offered too much innovation beyond just graphics, something that was the focus of the GameCube. All Mario Sunshine could do was try to build upon the benchmark that Mario 64 set, and whether you preferred Sunshine over 64, its impact on not on just the industry, but on you as a player entering 3D for the first time and mastering all of that, that it did out of the gate was just too much for Sunshine to leave the same impression on you. The same thing happened to Majora's Mask, which had the unfortunate task of following Ocarina of Time, and it was Majora's Mask that sparked this whole video. So, some people might have looked at Link to the Past and thought that it can't get much better than this. Then Ocarina of Time arrives, transports Zelda into 3D for the first time, seemingly with ease. Creates industry standards for open worlds and third-person action controls, and gives an utterly unforgettable adventure that still to this day by many is called the greatest game ever made. On the same console and in that time frame, Majora's Mask technically never stood a chance in hell, in my opinion. So what it had to be was something different. It needed its own angle, and that angle was taking time travel to the next level, having a 3-day time system, a level that I recently said was perhaps ahead of its time, as the concept is utterly wonderful in the game, but the execution can cause some issues for players. But Majora's Mask excels at atmosphere and builds upon some of the things that Ocarina of Time introduced, and in many ways, makes them better. But man, Ocarina of Time set the Zelda template for decades for a reason, and unfortunately, it was just too high of a benchmark for Majora's Mask to arguably leave that level of impact. Metroid Prime got me to buy my first export console, a Platinum US GameCube, because when I first saw this game, I knew that it was going to be something special, and Metroid Prime 1 happily sits in my top 5 games ever made. Unfortunately for us, in the UK, a lot of games back then would release around the world first, and we'd be waiting sometimes months for these new releases to arrive. I couldn't wait that long. Prime 1 nailed everything that video games strive for, in my opinion, and Metroid Prime 2 has a near on impossible task of beating it on the same platform in that same generation. But although Prime 2 never reached Prime 1's heights, Prime 2 for me is still a staggering gaming achievement and includes things that I want in every Metroid game, but man, Prime 1 still to this day stands on a mountain by itself. But even if you go back to that generation, Prime 2, there's not many other games that can match its technical and just overall game achievements. There's really not. So, I was working in electronics boutique when the Dreamcast launched, and as I always tell this story, I actually skipped a day off college to work the Dreamcast launch, and I got no regrets whatsoever. But man, seeing Soul Calibur on the CRT TV for the first time, I'm telling you people, if you weren't there at the time, it's hard to explain how mind-blowingly good that game looked. Me and my friends played this game to death, and still to this day I say it's a perfect game. So when Soul Calibur 2 came out, the game is technically better than Soul Calibur, and including characters like Link in the GameCube version was just amazing. But it was just not enough to have the same impact that the original game had, and I ended up playing a lot less Soul Calibur 2 than I did Soul Calibur. I mean, Soul Calibur 2 is still fantastic. It's an absolutely fantastic game, but some sequels just stand in the shadows of greatness, in my opinion. Seeing Final Fantasy VII, Oddworld, Abe's Odyssey, and Parappa the Rapper made me buy the PS1 back in 1997 when all these games came out around the same time, and the PS1 was the first console I ever bought out of my own money. I remember the original TV advert for Final Fantasy VII, which showed off Midgar saying something like, "Can you fit this on your TV screen?" None of these games came to the Sega Saturn, which I had first. So as a gamer, I just had to have them. But Final Fantasy VII deserves all the recognition it gets, and is still one of the best JRPGs ever made. So what could Final Fantasy VIII do to top it? Well, in my opinion, it just never. It didn't come close. But again, I was working in electronics boutique where Final Fantasy VIII launched, and we all stood there staring at the TV, watching that utterly stunning intro CGI movie, hyped beyond belief for this game. But Final Fantasy VIII once again was coming after a megaton of a title, and although elements of it was great, it never fused together or made anywhere near the same impact as that Final Fantasy VII did. Now, arguably, no other Final Fantasy game has done since.
Why did I follow him? I don't know. Why do things happen as they do in dreams?
And finally, you have Diablo 2. Diablo 2 is another title that sits happily in my top 5 games ever made. For me, and to quote my good friend Retro Death, this game is atmospheric perfection.
It is an absolute marvel of dungeon design, sound design, the soundtrack, the characters, the voice acting. This game is literal perfection from top to bottom.
Within a fantasy world that calls to every part of my soul. I played Diablo 2 for 5 years straight, have immense memories of it, doing bail runs, map hacking, and even setting up LAN parties in an internet cafe I used to work in back in 2000. Diablo 2 is just crom tier to me. So what chance did Diablo 3 have of topping it? Well, it might have done if it came out earlier, but Diablo 3 didn't come out until over a decade later, and its arrival proved that the Blizzard of old was no more, and that Diablo 2 virtually nailed the concept of dungeon crawlers back in 2000, and with the industry not moving much past it since. The hype for Diablo 3 was real, don't get me wrong, I was crazy hyped, and ignoring all its failings after all that time and all that nostalgia and all that atmospheric perfection, it was perhaps never going to top the masterpiece that is Diablo 2 and its expansion, The Lord of Destruction.
Well, it seems your terms are not acceptable.
So, those are some, but of course not all of those games that had to come after games that still to this day are considered gaming masterpieces and industry setters and just innovators. I think we can all agree that for the most part these are amazing follow-ups. Perhaps never had a chance in hell of surpassing the greatness that came before. And for many people, what came before still hasn't been surpassed. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Of course, I want to know those follow-ups to games that never stood a chance in your mind, and I'll reply to every single one of you. Leave me some of your examples, and like I said, I'll reply to every single one of you. Thanks for listening, take care all, and peace.